Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska Show. I am your host, John Quick, and boy, do we have a special treat for you. But first, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, for listening. It's because of folks listen, watch, and read our show that we're able to, even get that news out further. And we want to thank our show sponsor, Gungerstein for Senate, for sponsoring the show. She's running for U.S. Senate out of Juneau. Check her out. She's a nonpartisan. And we want to thank her for sponsoring the show. And we also want to remind folks that we have a Must Read Alaska app. If you go to the Google Play Store or the Android or the iTunes Store, you can type in there Must Read Alaska, and the Must Read Alaska app pops up. It is free, folks. We spend a lot of time, money, resources on that app. Download it. If you like it, give us a review. If you like this podcast, if you're listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, iHeartRadio, the list goes on, and you like the podcast, please leave us a review. That helps us get out even further to all the nooks and crannies of Alaska and abroad. And I want to introduce you to our show guest today. We have something very exciting. We have Jason, who is the president and CEO of Rocky Brands, and Dave, who's the vice president of marketing and e-commerce for Rocky Brands, which happens to be the company that owns and operates Xtratuf. Welcome to the show, Jason and Dave. Thanks for coming on the Must Read Alaska Show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sean. We appreciate being here and excited to talk to you and the people in Alaska today.
Well, I appreciate it. We're doing something special. Jason and Dave, put their heads together and wanted to do something extra special for the folks in Alaska because they love Alaska so much. So today we're going to be giving away a pair of Xtratuf boots. We're also going to be giving away a couple Xtratuf koozies and I believe a sweatshirt. And so all you have to do to enter to win that is like, comment, or share this Facebook Live that's going to be pinned to the top of the page all day, and you will be entered to win. The last couple times we've done this, we've had literally thousands of entries. So if you want to win a free pair of Xtratuf boots, 2 Xtratuf koozies, and a sweatshirt, like, comment, or share the post. If you do all three, you get 3 entries. So the sky's the limit there. So welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show, guys. For folks that just love the Xtratuf, we were talking a little bit before the show that I can walk down to the place that has all the commercial fishing boats in Alaska on the Kenai Peninsula, literally hundreds of them, and you'll see these gritty guys that are all wearing Xtratufs. And then you go to the Podunk Music Festival town in Alaska, and all the hipsters are wearing Xtratuf, and you've been able to do that with your brand in an authentic way. So kind of what's the story behind Xtratuf? I mean, everybody in Alaska wears them, but how did it start? How did it evolve? Tell us a little bit about the story behind it. Stories are important for folks in Alaska. They mean a lot. So give us the inside scoop.
Sure thing. Jason, you want me to take this, or?
Yeah, why don't you start off, Dave?
Okay. So why is Xtratuf in Alaska? Well, it's a really interesting story because it's a really interesting brand. A lot of folks don't know this, but Xtratuf actually started as a dairy boot meant for dairy farmers. We don't have the exact birth story of the first legacy boot, but the early products were made by the B.F. Goodrich Rubber Company, which a lot of us know as a tire company. Number of decades ago, a lot of tire companies were in the boot business because they knew how to make product out of rubber. Rich made the original Xtratuf boot for dairy farmers. Like a lot of folks in Alaska, there's a migratory nature to dairy farming work, and everything we've found showed that some dairy farmers were also fishermen up in Alaska. When they weren't working the farm. They would go up to Alaska, fish, work in the fisheries. They brought their boots along with them. The boots just found a natural home on the decks of commercial fishing vessels, and a lot of folks ended up staying in Alaska. A lot of folks in Alaska saw the boots, thought they were great for wearing beyond fishing, and 6-7 decades later, synonymous with life in Alaska, because they're built function first to provide protection, traction, and comfort to those who wear them. So that's what we know and how we've pieced together how the brand ended up in Alaska.
That's awesome. So why do you, Jason, a question for you, why do you think Xtratuf is so special for Alaskans? As I mentioned before, basically everybody wears them. It doesn't even have to, they don't even have to have a connection to commercial fishing or to really anything. They'll just wear them because they're just a staple shoe in Alaska. Why do you think that's such a special thing for Alaskans?
John, I think you mentioned it earlier, the authenticity around it, right? The boot is really more of a tool than it is anything else. And I think obviously Alaskans really are passionate about that and have a lot of values around that. And so the boot performs well. And I think Alaskans appreciate that. And that's what means something to them. So them and their tools and what they need in Alaska really resonates. And I think the Xtratuf brand really resonates with that.
Yeah, I would agree. My whole family has them. We probably have, I don't know, 7 pairs, but there's only 5 people in my family. So somebody's got a couple extra pairs. And, I think you guys have found a magical formula with this boot. Sometimes when you find that you don't want to disturb the process, but you all have been able to come up with some kind of new designs lately that have really been successful. Describe to me the process of how something like that comes up. Your partnership with Salmon Sisters was ingenious. Talk to me a little bit about that process and why you think that's been so successful.
Yeah,
I'll let Dave take this one. Yeah,
sure. Kind of building off what Jason said, what we found about the Alaskan way of life is you have to be a doer. You can't just sit back and sort of let society hand it to you. You got to go out and do things, and our product's built for those who do things, and those who do things are often the most ingenious folks. And a lot of our designs, whether it's in a completely new silhouette or shoes type like the Legacy Lace, which is essentially a kind of a mashup of 2 boots, where we saw folks taking their worn out Legacy boots, chopping off the upper, sewing on a leather upper, and getting sort of a duck boot type looking boot. And so we saw folks making those literally by hand, as we sort of journey around the state. And so we decided to create one of those for the Xtratuf line. And that's really the catalyst for everything we design, is spending time with fishermen, spending time with people living in Alaska, spending time at lodges and seeing what they're wearing, listening to what their needs are. And often, if there is no unmet need because they've created it themselves, there might not be a commercially produced item. And so we then say, is this something that we can commercially produce that you will find of value? If the answer is yes, then we look to do it. The partnership with the Salmon Sisters was, applying their beautiful prints to our product, but really the functional need and working with them was the catalyst behind creating the first women's specific last Legacy boot. So that's really what was so exciting about that partnership, and is still what's exciting about that partnership, is making a women's specific commercial fishing boot. And I think we're still the only company that does that.
Yeah, it seems to be very successful. We have sold them in our, I own a hardware store in a small town in Alaska, and we've sold them at the hardware store a couple summers ago, and man, they sold like hotcakes. This is a community of some rough and tumble folks, and they were cool enough to sell to those folks. So kudos on the success for that partnership. I think it's a brilliant partnership, and Salmon Sisters is well liked up here in Alaska. And one of the things I think that's important for Alaskans is that these companies that are popular in Alaska, maybe making a buck off of folks in Alaska, that they also invest in the community or the state. Is there ways you guys kind of partner outside of the business stuff that you guys are in, that Xtratuf is investing in communities where they sell goods and services? And what are some of those cool partnerships or opportunities that you're doing not only in Alaska but around the US?
Yeah. And I think what's I don't want to speak for Jason, but I think what's cool about my answer I'm about to share is this is not just Xtratuf, it's all the brands within the Rocky portfolio take this approach, in that we truly partner with our retailers. And John, I know you're a retailer, so we're meeting for the first time, but we have a lot of retailers, and when retailers come to us and ask us to participate in something that they're doing for their community, we love saying yes, because retailers are part of the community, and we want to, if you support us by stocking our product, we want to be able to support you and the corresponding community. And that's something that's very important for Xtratuf, and that's something that's very important for Rocky Brands. So that's something we do. We also have a pro team that we work with, and they help us test product, help us with new designs, validate our new designs. They're often very involved in local initiatives. A lot of our pro team are commercial fishermen in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, so we support their initiatives. And then there are things that we do as a brand on our own. You probably remember, I think it was November of 2018. This one just popped into mind. There was I think a magnitude 7 earthquake that went through Alaska, and we got wind of that pretty quickly. And we set up a campaign selling what we called these fun T-shirts, Alaska Tough, and all the proceeds from those T-shirt sales went to Beans Cafe in Anchorage. And I think we were able to raise a good amount of money for that. So we do, grassroots efforts like that as well. But we take pride in the Alaska and the greater Pacific Northwest and our brand's sort of connection to that region.
Yeah, I would just add, John, Rocky Brands as a corporation is based in a small little town in Southeast Ohio called Nelsonville, about 5,000 people, not very big. And we have a organization, a part of the company called RCIF, which is Rocky Community Improvement Fund. And we do a lot of charity work locally here, trying to support this region. It is a rather poor region of the United States. And so as Dave said, we really will partner and do a lot with our retail partners around the country, around the world. And then we do this, we really try to focus right here where we're at. And there's need everywhere, right, John? And everybody needs a good supportive network around them. And we try to do what we can wherever we can.
That's awesome. So Jason, you're the CEO of Rocky Brands, which has a bunch of brands, underneath it, Xtratuf being one of them.
Yep.
What's next for Xtratuf? You're the guy that's kind of leading the vision, leading the charge for the team. What do you see on the horizon for Xtratuf? What can Alaskans be excited about? Give us your ruhaha speech of what's on the horizon.
Yeah, well, it's been a pretty fun ride so far. Rocky Brands acquired this brand literally just a year and a half ago, right? So we being me and the company, we were not even that familiar. I knew of the brand, but I did not understand the passion that the people have for this brand. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities to expand, obviously continue to do the great product that we're doing, make sure that it meets the expectations of the end user. But I think we could probably look at expanding that brand into maybe some work type apparel, something that the fishermen might like up there. Maybe some more of the T-shirt, sweatshirt kind of things might be good. but we definitely will just make sure that we're building the best boots we can build for the people who are wearing them and supporting that. That's really important in all our brands.
That's awesome. So, fellas, do you have any, before I kind of take us off here, do you have any last thoughts on just Xtratuf as it relates to Alaska, what you're excited about, or, a story you want to make sure you get across to the folks here in Alaska? You're going to have thousands of folks in Alaska be watching this over the next 24 hours. What's your message to folks in Alaska?
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was trying to get off mute. I think Jason, mentioned a year and a half ago, Xtratuf joined the Rocky Brands family, and I think it's just a really important part of the Xtratuf story. We were part of the Honeywell family for a long time, and I know there's been a lot of mixed emotions about that in Alaska. Honeywell is a very large multinational Fortune 100 company with multitudes of businesses. Being part of Rocky is a footwear and apparel company. That's Rocky's focus. That's what Rocky does. And being a part of a company that is maniacally focused on just that, it's a breath of fresh air for this brand. We're amongst people who understand the needs for high quality product. We're amongst people who have built an entire business ecosystem around footwear. And so I'm pumped about what Xtratuf's going to be able to do as far as providing a great, consistent product to the people of Alaska.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Dave. And the one thing I would add to it, John, is our corporate logo has 3 mountain peaks on it. And those peaks all represent 3 different categories. One is the employees of the company. The second peak is our vendor partners or our retail partners. And then the third peak is our consumers, right? Which is the largest peak. But then at the base of the mountain, it has the word passion. And we are passionate, as David talked about, in the footwear industry, right? That's where we came from. That's where we were born and raised. And that's what I think resonates with the people in Alaska, because the passion of the people that I've met from Alaska is off the charts, right? Like, they are passionate about Alaska, what happens in Alaska. And so I think those 2 connection points are going to be really fun for us and hopefully for the people in Alaska over the next 20 years.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Dave and Jason, for joining the Must Read Alaska show. For folks that are listening, you have Dave, who is the chief marketing officer, and Jason, who is the CEO. Hopefully I didn't botch your title there, but I want to keep joining the Must Read Alaska show. They are in charge of Xtratuf, and not only that, they're in charge of the brand that oversees and owns Xtratuf. And they recently bought, Rocky Brands recently bought Xtratuf about a year and a half ago. And so you've been listening to us chit chat about what Xtratuf means in Alaska and how these guys think Alaska is pretty awesome. So I want to thank you for joining the Must Read Alaska show. I want to thank folks for listening. And I also remind folks that if you want to win a pair of F boots, 2 Xtratuf koozies, and extra sweatshirt, like, share, and comment on this Facebook post that's going to be pinned to the top page, and you can enter to win. We'll pick somebody here in 24 hours, and we want our sponsor, Congressman for Senate, for sponsoring the Must Read Alaska show. And until next time, John from somewhere in Alaska. Thank you so much, fellas.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.